the headline that broke yesterday from the FT really drove this upsurge in market sentiment. Some of the shine coming off in the last hour or so. How likely is it that we see this 15% tariff deal agreed?
Indeed, there's a lot of optimism over the last 24 hours when it comes to some of the equity market reaction to a potential deal between the EU and the US. But having spoken to sources who are following these conversations very, very closely, I would urge for a little bit of caution here, because edging closer, closing in on a deal is not the same as having a deal that is actually concluded. And all of the officials I've spoken with have highlighted that ultimately, even if there is something concrete on the table, nothing is established, nothing is negotiated until President Trump says yes to a deal. So there is a degree of caution in Brussels. And in fact, I would actually just highlight for the only conclusion really that we have at this stage, which is that the EU no longer seems to have dreams of a potential tariff rate of 10%. Currently, the level that is on the table is 15%, so similarly to what Japan managed to negotiate. But that really highlights how difficult these conversations have been for the Europeans. For the longest time, they had been pushing for a 10% baseline rate, and that is no longer what they have on the table after all of this back and forth with the United States. And I would just remind our viewers as well that the EU and the US were actually very close to finish these conversations and have a deal on the table before July 9th. President Trump was not happy with what was on the table, and ultimately these negotiations have continued to drag. So I would urge for a little bit of caution, as we still don't know ultimately what's going to be the resolution of these trade conversations. So it seems that, at least for the time being, we are getting closer to an agreement on 15%. But ultimately, the Europeans are getting ready for everything, for any possible scenario, and the countermeasures are still on the table, and they're still talking about the heaviest tool that they have on the table, which is the anti-coercion instrument. So let's see how this is going to unfold.